what is it, June 2nd? I'm losing track.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Wednesday, June 2nd. And obviously a lot to talk about today. Before we do that, I want to shout out our title sponsor, Championship Tennis Tours. There's a banner right below this video where you can check out their website. Going to any tournaments this summer, please pick up your tickets through them because they are nice. Webcast happen. And if you're going to the U.S. and you buy tickets through them, you'll be able to hang out with us at one of the parties they are throwing. So that should be a lot of fun. I am, of course, Will Hamilton alongside Adam Szyminski. Adam, what do you think of the matches today? We're going to talk about Serena, talk about Djokovic, Nadal.
I mean, it's turning out to be upset season here at the French Open, I think.
Well, I'm getting hammered in the chat already for underestimating Sam Stosur. So you know, I need to do something there. I improved my predictions. Still got Rafa, so I'm happy about that.
So you were like 1 for 20. It's impressive.
1 for 20. No, I picked Anna first, and then she lost to Stosur. Right. And then I said, well, maybe I should have just gone with Serena, and then Stosur beat her. But on the men's side, I'm still good. As long as Soderling doesn't blow it for me.
Do you ever notice how Will like changes his predictions halfway through the tournament and then tells you that that's what he thought all along, or that he's making awesome picks?
Mean, you know, I'm gonna keep. You call out my strategy. So that's I gotta change it now.
All right, fair enough.
See, that's not true. I'm not 0 and 12,844 on my predictions. I got.
You mad? You mad about it?
I'm not mad. I picked Federer last year at the French Open before the tournament started, and I think I was the only one to do that in the entire world. So
no, I mean picking Federer to win the majors. That's tough.
Yeah, that is. All right, I'm leaving. This is over.
Shutting it down, guys.
Thanks for tuning in. So let's start the top of the show with my poor prediction of Serena over Samantha Stosur, and we can jump over. Let me open up the magnifier real quick, and we can look at the stat line of this match. Couple interesting stats to right out of the gate. Here we've got the score line. Obviously a close match. It was 2-7 and then 8, or excuse me, 2-6 and 6 in the. But obviously it was 8-6 and not a breaker in the third set. First thing that struck me was the service stat line because both players served extremely well. 63 for Serena and 66 for Stosur. And if we scroll down to the miles per hour or kilometers, you can see that the stat line here is pretty even. I mean, Serena was a little bit higher on the first serve, but Stosur was higher on the second serve. Yes, SAR 144. I do remember you asking me on Saturday what I thought of Stosur's chances of winning. Please stop rubbing it in. But yeah, the stat line here, you know, the thing that Serena does so well to her, or rather does so well, and one of the reasons she wins so many majors is that she's got a bigger serve than pretty much everybody else out there, and she attacks her opponent's serves extremely well. And most women don't have real big serves. A lot of them just try and get the ball in, and in fact, it's a situation where in tight matches, a lot of players, their serves kind of unravel. Safina, Dementieva, particularly earlier in her career, and some other players. So Serena does a nice job of, first of all, she'll punish a second serve that just sits there. Right. But simply by standing in, that's going to get
mentally pressure.
Yeah, exactly. You're going to mentally pressure the opponent. So Serena's a master of that. But again,
certainly on the women's side, most women have enough problems with their serve that adding that little extra mental intimidation could have some added effect.
Oh, sure. The ESPN's coverage, they did a sort of a segment on the women's game and the serve in particular. And one of the things Carrillo was saying was that Serena, unlike a lot of other players, her technique holds up under pressure, and that's certainly not the case for a lot of other women on tour. But you know, again, against Stosur, that was not the case. Stosur served huge on the first serve and the second serve as well. Got a great second serve, great kick.
I mean, yeah.
So
Stosur has one of the best motions on the women's tour.
No, it's a great motion. And, holds up under pressure.
Exactly.
And Serena was standing in, and she was standing in on some first serves too, and getting blown off the court essentially. But that sort of centerpiece, one of the centerpieces for Serena's game, standing up, attacking the second serve, not nearly as effective in this match. And I think that's one of the reasons Stosur pulled it out. I mean, this was an extremely close match. This could have gone either way. And Stosur cracked mentally a little bit there. She was serving for the match at 5-3 in the second. Did not play a good game. Sort of the Serena intimidation factor seemed to, be evident in that game. And she did a very nice job of getting herself together and winning at 8-6 in the third set. A lot of lesser players from a mental standpoint would unravel, and that last set would be 6-1 or 6-2. I mean, We've seen that happen all the time. So, very impressive performance on a number of levels there for Stosur. I had an interesting observation.
Real quick, do I sound quiet right now? Because if I sound really quiet compared to Will, I can walk over and fix that. Just say in the chat if I sound quiet, but go ahead and continue. Yeah,
I thought Serena's body language. I mean, I wanted to touch on the mental game sort of more from an instructional standpoint, because Serena Williams is one of those players where she seems to get down on herself, and sometimes she's talking to herself.
Yeah.
She hit a serve and missed a first serve, and her first serve, I think, she served 63% for the first serves. That's pretty good, but I think on the big points it didn't always go in like she expected it to.
Yeah.
So she said something to the effect, and the mic picked it up after she missed a first serve. That's so.
Yeah.
Just she was almost kind of confused and frustrated as to why she wasn't getting that serve in. And again, her body language is very evident. Sometimes she's getting down on herself. She's yelling at herself. Yeah. I wanted to touch on it because that's typically a really bad thing to happen to a tennis player is the body language goes. Yeah. The focus seems to go.
Right. And Serena is certainly normally known for being very mentally tough.
Well, that's what I was going to say, is that actually doesn't affect her, and she actually is able to raise her game typically when she gets real frustrated like that. Most players, the opposite happens. They come apart. They start complaining. They lose focus. Serena's one of those players like McEnroe. The madder they got, the better they played. So all those antics with McEnroe smashing his racket and screaming at the umps, that focused him even better.
Yeah.
The same is true for Serena, but this is not something you want to apply to your game, because unless you kind of have that mental makeup, then it's not going to be as effective. I recommend a Federer, Rafa demeanor where they're just very locked in, focused, and don't show much negative emotion or body language.
Of course, Serena is still alive in the tournament. She and Venus are playing doubles.
That's true.
They've advanced to the finals, so they will be playing dubs for the trophy.
Yeah, they. I mean, you got to hand it to both Venus and Serena for obviously
they're
Venus.
They're a fantastic doubles team.
Well, they're a fantastic doubles team, but Shea, tough loss today. Serena.
Both of them. I mean,
earlier,
yeah, sure, absolutely.
No, but you're right. You're right. Both of them had disappointing losses. Serena's is sort of more recent, obviously, and they both were able to focus mentally. So there's a good lesson in there. Even though I wouldn't try and replicate Serena's method of handling frustration or pressure, because for most people it's not going to work too well. A couple more points before we move on to some of the other matches. I was particularly impressed with Stosur's inside-out forehand. I thought she hit that really well, and she's got a compact backswing on that shot. So for a player like Serena, who can certainly pressure you off the ground, that compact backswing helped her stay in front of the ball.
Yeah.
And she went after it. She hit some big shots. And the final point I make is again, as well as Stosur played, this was a very close match. It hinged on a couple important points, and Stosur came up big, hit some circus shots in some of these matches or some of these points to come out on top. So you got to say hats off there for she kind of cracked mentally at 5-3, but she also played some points later on very well. So hats off to her. And in the next round, she, of course, is she's playing Jankovic. We got it right there. Jankovic. And then we've got Schiavone versus Dementieva in the other women's semis. So.
That ought to be interesting as well.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to get a first-time Grand Slam winner. Nobody left in the draw.
No Grand Slam winners left in the draw.
In the women's half.
That's got to be probably exciting for any of the women that are left in there, knowing that they're not facing a Grand Slam champion at any point here.
But yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see what happens from a mental standpoint, because winning Grand Slams is just as much about the mental game as it is about how you hit a forehand backhand serve, how you move around the court, and so on.
Sure.
If I had to, I'm on the men's draw now. If I go back to the women's draw real quick, if I had to say who I think has the edge here, this is going to be a tough match. Stosur Jankovic is going to be a tough one to call because both have, Jankovic has been further in a major than Stosur has. Jankovic has been to a final, and she seems to be playing well. But Stosur, like I said, has demonstrated that mental toughness, so I think that's going to be an interesting matchup. I think on the lower half, I'm gonna pick Dementieva to get through there. I think she's been in big situations more than Schiavone. This is obviously the farthest she has been in a major, so I think Dementieva gets through that match. Although if Schiavone's hitting that one-handed backhand as well, she has been.
I don't know. I mean, you were saying earlier, maybe a week ago, I mean, you think Dementieva is the best women's player who has not yet won a major. Do you think this is her chance to win the major?
I mean, I think this is her best chance, absolutely. She's not coming up against, a Serena or a Venus or some other the big names, the people who have been there before. It's always tough playing in a major final, particularly if you haven't played in too many major finals or any, when you're playing someone who's been there and won it before.
Yeah.
And we saw that last year, Soderling versus Federer. Soderling admitted that the moment got to him. So I think
Jules in the chat says, since Stosur beat Williams and Elena, I think she believes she can win. So
I think that's true to a large extent, but if we remember back to last year and Soderling, he had beaten Rafa earlier in the tournament, and Rafa, king of clay, had won four Roland Garroses in a row. So obviously coming out of that, Soderling you would assume would have a lot of confidence, and indeed he did. Yet he got beaten easily in the final.
Yeah.
So playing in a final doesn't matter if you've beaten, the best coming in. It's just being there is something. I'm kind of. I've never been there, so I'm kind of talking about speculative to a degree.
Wait a minute, you've never been to a Grand Slam final?
Well, I've been in the stands for one.
Why would you guys trust any instruction that this guy has to offer?
I mean, I can't. I'm blowing the predictions. So.
I mean. You haven't even played in the Grand Slam final.
Yeah, I've never even played a pro match.
Disturbing. It's deeply disturbing that hundreds of you are watching right now, and this guy has no clue what he's talking about.
Yeah, we're gonna sign off in that case. But yeah, the pressure in those situations is simply different. So you never know how people are going to react in that situation. But it certainly is tough if you're there for the first time and you're playing someone who's been there before. Do you have some parting thoughts?
No, let's get to the men's side.
Okay, cool. First one I want to talk about, we can just kind of hit on this, I don't have to say relatively quickly, but
back to the shot of us here.
Yeah, before I pull it up, the Rafa Almagro match, and this we can look at the stat line. Here we got
Almagro up on top,
and then it was of course 6-6 and 4. It was about as close as a 3-set match gets, and you had a pretty okay stat line from Almagro, 63 in the first. Obviously, the unforced errors to winners is -7.
It looks like it's off the screen there. It's cutting off.
Well, it's cut. It might be cutting off a little. Let me. There we go. So yeah. Whoops. So Almagro was -7 on winners to unforced errors, while Rafa was even. And I think that if we go down to the stat line here, the 106 versus 117. This match was certainly very close, particularly in those first two sets. And Almagro was sort of taking the Robin Soder approach to a degree. I'm going to hit big off the serve. I'm going to hit big off my groundies.
Right.
And I'm going to shorten these points up whenever I can.
And Almagro turns out is not Robin Soderling.
He's not. I mean, he's a big hitter, but in the preview video I made last night for this match, I said, Almagro can hit big. He can't hit big like Soderling, so I don't expect him to be able to, he won't execute that strategy as effectively, and I didn't expect him to be able to maintain it over the course of a 5-set
and
match.
He was cramping. No.
That was Melzer.
Yeah,
that was Melzer.
That was never mind. Matches crossed.
He did though. I mean, he did do a nice job. I mean, the match, like I said, is about as close as it gets for a 3-set match.
He pressured Nadal in some situations, and he certainly was, striking the ball pretty well. But I think Nadal was able to overcome and grind it out.
Sure. And Charles is right in chat. I felt like Almagro made more errors than Soderling. He certainly did in terms of a ratio. I think this match has to be problematic from Rafa's standpoint. I think he's going to beat Melzer in straights. But if Soderling gets through to the final, I would be worried if I was Rafa based on the results of this match.
Yeah, I mean, I think if we see, particularly if we see Soderling come out in the semifinals, guns blazing.
And he sustains it,
and he shows that he can hit big leading up to that Rafa match, then I think that bodes well for him. Yeah,
it bodes well for Soderling, doesn't bode well for Rafa. I mean, Rafa said in his post-match, coming out, I was nervous. I knew Almagro was going to come after me.
Yeah.
And Almagro was effective in his, the strategic framework was there. It was just the execution wasn't up to snuff. Over the course of the whole thing. Sorry, question in chat about Rafa at Wimbledon. We'll get to that a little bit later on. Maybe not in this webcast. Maybe in a future one when we're previewing that. But I think we'll talk about this more as the tournament goes on. But Rafa definitely looked, I don't know if vulnerable is the right word, but there were times when he hit balls that were attackable, and Almagro attacked him. And if I'm Melzer, I'm looking at the tape, and I'm gonna be playing aggressively, which is what he did against Djokovic today. We'll get to that in a minute.
Farno says in the chat, if Soderling can hit big and not get too many unforced errors, he has a good shot against Nadal. I don't actually know if that's true. I mean, obviously you want to be positive on the unforced errors, or I'm sorry, on the winners to unforced errors, but Soderling committed almost as many unforced errors as he earned winners. But what that showed was that Soderling was dominating the play, and the entire match was being played on his terms. It wasn't that he needed to minimize so many unforced errors. It was just that he needed to pull the trigger when he could, and settle points that way.
No, that's right. I mean, I think the sort of blueprint, if you will, with beating Rafa, and this is certainly easier said than done, is you need to go for broke, and you need to play the match on your terms, and you don't sit there and grind with Rafa. You're going to get up there and you're going to say, I'm going to hit away, I'm going to swing away at every opportunity I get. I'm going to take Rafa, I'm going to take you out of the equation. Either I make my shots or I don't. There's nothing you can do about it. And if the ball goes in, I'm going to win, and if it doesn't, then I'm going to lose. And, obviously, again, there's that level of execution. Almagro wasn't able to execute it.
Yeah.
Last year, Soderling was. Over the summer last year, Del Potro was twice. Obviously a different surface, but that is the game plan. You literally grip it and rip it.
Right.
So there's that. I think that's what I'd be worried about again if I was Rafa. I'm coming into this final. If Soderling serves huge, if he returns big, if he takes cuts on my ground strokes, again, some of them, Rafa did put some balls in attackable positions.
Yeah.
That heavy topspin, which he uses to sort of work you over, particularly earlier, it was more effective, I think, earlier in his career, where guys wouldn't take a cut the first look they got.
Right. I think that it was interesting because a couple days ago, Brad Gilbert on the television commentary said that Rafa is playing invincible tennis right now, and I don't know if that's true. I think you cannot ever discount Rafa, obviously, on clay. But I don't know if it's invincible, especially if you pound the ball like some of these players who've had doing that are.
Yeah. I mean, he looked. Obviously earlier in the tournament he's going to play lesser opponents, so he's going to look great.
Yeah.
But I think what we've learned, particularly in the last year or two against not just Rafa but Federer. If a guy comes out and he's got a huge game and he's hitting winners, you can't do anything.
Right.
That happened to my volume's like twice yours apparently. Because I talk really. You can ask Adam. I talk really loud sometimes.
Yep, that's true.
I'll get into like presentation voice, and the volume. Like we'll just be having a normal conversation, and I'll go into presentation mode, and Adam's like, "Dude, you're standing right next to me. Lower your volume."
My batteries are a little low. That's possible. I mean, I can go turn my
presentation voice. Presentation voice. Go right
presentation
now.
Presentation voice. Am I as loud as Will? I should be. This is about talks. Anyways, let's.
Yeah, there you go. See, that's presentate. You got to enunciate. You speak from.
Right.
The stomach. I don't know, whatever.
Speak from the stomach.
The stomach. I'm trying.
Advice
I don't know how does the body work in terms of the voice. I have no idea what I'm talking about. All right.
Oh boy.
Moving on from that. Yeah. All right. Let's talk about. If you guys have any questions regarding this match before we move on. Please let us know in the chat. We also didn't mention at the top of the show, got some stuff to give away in a couple minutes. Let me actually pull up my email so I can figure out what exactly
we have remaining to give away.
We have. Yeah, I mean we got a bunch of stuff. I'm just trying to pick something. Might just go with a gift card today. That seems simple.
Yeah.
We can go with $25 gift card courtesy of Tennis Express. Thanks to them for facilitating that. Yeah, so people are just, is Rafa changing his game on clay? Let's hit this question from Eric, and then we'll move on to the Melzer match. I think he's becoming more aggressive. I don't think he's quite figured out everything he wants to do yet. Mm-hmm. But if you listen to Uncle Tony's interview with Brad Gilbert, and you've just watched Rafa since he came back from his injury, he's trying to flatten out that forehand. I mean, Uncle Tony was saying, hit the forehand hard, hit it flat when the opportunity presents itself. The other thing Rafa is doing is he's learning to move forward into the court and really attack and not hang out so far behind the baseline.
Wait for his opponents to make mistakes.
Exactly. I mean, he realizes that he can't sit there and grind because there are guys out there that can take big cuts
from behind the baseline.
Yeah, from behind the baseline, exactly. Like Robin, like Del Potro, Federer, to a degree, not as much. But the Rafa's style is perfectly fine against a guy who can't attack him. Yeah. But against a guy with bigger strokes, it certainly becomes more of an issue. And he did well against Almagro today as well. Exactly. I mean, Odyssey is saying taking control of the point. That's right. He's taking control of points. He's being more aggressive, controlled aggression, but he's being more aggressive and being smart about it. Yeah. So. That obviously is good to see because I think that's going to help his longevity and not only his effectiveness as a tennis player.
Oh, we have a poll.
Oh, we do.
And this is kind of a random, not random, but an interesting question of what you guys think about who is the most dominant player on a particular surface, and we're doing like a relative comparison.
Somebody asked this before the show started. I thought it was a good question, so we made it our poll.
So the poll is starting now. The question is, who is the most dominant player on a particular surface? Is it Pete Sampras on grass, Roger Federer on grass, Bjorn Borg on clay, or Rafa Nadal on clay? And I don't know how many of you guys out there are watching, before you enter your poll results real quick, who weren't, around, like me, for instance, to watch Borg play on clay. But the guy took 6 French Opens and reached a U.S. Open, I think, final back when it was being played on clay, but lost to Connors. So he certainly has his chops on clay, even though I see no votes for him. I guess no one thinks he's all that dominant. It's interesting, but...
Well, he hung up the racket, a while ago. He retired early. I think he was 25. He just kind of got burned out and, said enough. So he certainly could have had more.
It's certainly interesting. I mean, what I said against, again about Borg, perhaps people didn't think he had that much competition, maybe. But taking 6 French Opens on clay is certainly more than Rogers.
He had some guys in there that were pretty good.
Sure. I think he actually played McEnroe towards the end of his career, and Connors and some of those other guys.
Yeah, there was some good talent that Borg had to contend with. But we'll get to those poll results in a second. Let's before we hit on that, let's talk about the Melzer Djokovic match, because this was a crazy one.
Yep.
Here's the stat line. Obviously, you got Melzer on top, 6-3, 6-2, and then 2-6, 7-6, 6-4. I read that scoreline totally wrong, but hopefully Melzer was down 2 sets.
In other words, Melzer was down 2 sets and then came back.
Yeah. This was just a weird match in a lot of respects. I mean, Melzer did not serve well. Djokovic served okay. I mean, he served pretty well.
Yeah.
Not okay. I mean, he served pretty well, good percentage. And which is nice to see, because Djokovic's serve is still sort of, I don't know, I think a mess is a strong word. The main problem with Djokovic is the mental end of the serve. Kind of back to what we talked about earlier on the women's side, where mentally, you know, the technique can break down, or the technique can break down when things get mentally difficult and there's more pressure. I think Djokovic, because he's not super confident with his serve, is struggling. Hold on, is struggling. I just wanted to make sure it was queued up. Let's come back to the stat line, because the thing that one of the things, Melzer should have lost this match. I mean, he was down 2 sets to love and down a break in the third, and this stat line in particular, 4 for 24 on break chances, is terrible. And you know that I can only characterize this by expressing myself in MS Paint. So I came up with a graphic to illustrate what I thought of that stat line, which is this. He gets the big old lols, 3 exclamation points and underline, because
good old trusty Microsoft Paint there.
Yeah.
Coming through.
By the way, that graphic took me 3 hours to put together, guys.
It's true. His paint skills are actually really not very impressive.
Hey, that took a little while. So don't say I never did anything for you.
All right.
But that stat line was, you know, that's not going to get it done later in the tournament. You play Rafa, you're toast.
Well, the interesting thing that you said was that Melzer should not have won this match, or should have lost this match. The better way to phrase it is Djokovic should have won this match.
Yeah, that's a great way to phrase it as well.
You know, where is he right now?
Well, you know, it's unfortunate for him. This is obviously going to sting a ton, being up 2 sets to love in a break, and it's certainly not going to help him regain the confidence that was certainly all over the map in the spring. So, you know, hopefully he's able to recover. He's obviously such a great talent.
Yeah.
That two-handed backhand's awesome. So we'll see what goes on with that.
De Coconut says Djokovic is still a winner for him.
Well, he does. I mean, he you know, outside of Rafa and Federer and now Del Potro, he's the only guy that's won a major in the last couple of years. And he's certainly got that talent. I mean, it really is just a big mental component to what he needs to sort of, or rather, he needs to mentally get tough so he can right the ship. That's you know.
Yeah, I mean, you and I were talking about this earlier. And in chat we have a comment from Agassi78. It's just like Djokovic. It's like, what is he doing on all these videos? I mean, he has his shirt off on French TV, doing, you know, getting a lap dance, for lack of a better description, from his doubles partner, and all these other weird things that I see Djokovic out there in the media doing. Do you think that any of that is distracting from his focus, and is he mature enough yet to win titles?
You know, I don't know how much the antics off court. I don't know if that specific instance you're referring to is necessarily bad. I mean, I think in a season as long as tennis, you need to have sort of silly stuff to relax you. What I will say, though, is we were talking about how Serena on court has negative body language and sometimes throws her hands up and talks to herself and complains, and that actually focuses her and helps her. That's not the case for Djokovic. Djokovic does the exact same thing. He complains, he looks at his box, he screams, he starts to play worse when that happens. So I think there is a level of, I don't know if emotional immaturity there. I mean, you know, the guy is mentally tough enough to win a major, but with that said, I mean, yeah, I mean, maybe the mental toughness it has been questioned by a number of commentators in the past, and it seems to still be an issue.
I'm not trying to knock Djokovic. I'm just wondering if I'm Djokovic and millions of dollars are on the line and my playing reputation is on the line, like, I wouldn't be doing these things.
Do I goof around?
Right, I wouldn't be goofing around. I'd be practicing and winning.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a balancing act. I think it depends, you know, on the player. I think it's heavily player dependent how much you want to practice. McEnroe didn't practice when he played. Yeah. He played doubles, and that was his practice. Yeah. Connors practiced 14 hours a day. I mean, that's obviously hyperbolic, but he was on the court all the time.
Sure.
I do think your extracurriculars can get in the way of your performance. Look at Mark Philippoussis or Patrick Rafter. Apparently, the story was the last. I think it was a Wimbledon final against Sampras. The night before, he went out and was out all night and had been drinking heavily. And you know, I'm like, why are you playing in the Wimbledon final tomorrow? That's, you know, I don't know if that's true, but I've heard on good, you know, from a knowledgeable sources that's what happened. So these guys do make poor decisions, just like anybody else, though. Just like anybody else.
Sure.
But
certainly, I think for a lot of these players who grow up playing tennis, I mean, you're locked into academies starting at age 8 or, you know, younger, and all you do is play, eat, sleep, play for 15 years until finally, you know, you're a celebrity, you have money, and then you're going to have your distractions. I think that's
you're not. It's going to be tough to handle particularly if you make it at a young age.
Yeah.
Some guys can handle it, some guys can't. I think yes. Just sort of the short, condensed answer. Djokovic could be mentally tougher, and you know, whether or not that happens in the near future is certainly up to him. But I think there's a little bit of room for.
Someone says mention the volley, the choke.
Yeah, I mean, well, that's what I wanted to get to, because we were looking at the stat line, 4 for 24 on break chances, big points, and then I mean, it looks like he's choking on those shots. He has literally a sitting volley.
He had a match point
push
that, you know, he hit to Djokovic's forehand corner and came to net. Djokovic barely got, I would almost call it like a squash shot. I mean, it was like a chopped shot back that floated above the net, and Melzer was closing in. This was on match point. Melzer was going to win it right there, and he put it right into the tape. I mean, it was like open court, the ball was above the net, and it just went straight in.
It was
pulled it out, but
he did.
Eventually,
he got a little help. He got a little help first of all from the ref, who made that one terrible call.
And I think Djokovic like mentally lost it a little bit there.
Yeah, that was tough. I mean, that you don't put on Djokovic, because that's just it's super irritating when you're out there on court and then a linesman you know, decides a point for you.
And then shot spot, it turned out, called it good, right?
Yeah, shot spot showed it was in, and court said he heard tape. So that was a little bit surprising. You know, it was interesting. Previously, against Federer, Soderling, there was that shot. I believe it was the return that Soderling hit, that Federer hit long, and Soderling circled it and was walking to the bench, thinking he was up now 2 sets to none. And the ref comes out and says, no, you know, that ball was in. What turned out to be a terrible call. And then Soderling did a nice job of stepping up and hitting an ace on the very next shot. But there's been some questionable ref play or refereeing in the last few days.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, you know, I think Melzer is gonna, you know, we've got Melzer, Nadal coming up. I think Melzer is gonna get steamrolled in straight sets. You know, if he's struggling to convert his break chances, you know, 4 for 24, he's just not going to have that many opportunities against Rafa. He did do a nice job against Djokovic of standing right up on the baseline and really attacking.
So there's a little bit of a debate going on in the chat now about Hawkeye. So I'm going to start a new poll that's going to be up there. We'll talk about the previous poll results in just a second. But new poll going now. Question is, do you think, or will Hawkeye eventually just replace line judges in all of tennis? In other words, imagine 10 years from now in a tennis match where there are no line judges and the players hit the ball and they keep hitting until you hear beep, and that means the point's over. Will that ever happen, or should that happen? Post your thoughts in chat, vote on the poll, and we'll see what people come up with. And I'll pull up those previous poll results too, but go ahead.
The one for...
yeah.
That's what oh yeah. I actually have something. Pull that boy. Is that one going on now? Can you pull it up?
Yeah, that poll's going on now. Yep.
Well, what about the previous one? Can we pull up those?
That's what I'm going to go get right now.
Oh, okay, yeah, because I'm interested to,
yeah.
wanted to comment on that a little bit. And while you guys, well, why don't we do this while we're waiting?
Let's give away the gift card.
Yeah, I was going to do that. All right, so once you vote on the poll, this most recent one, gift card. This is not going to be a tennis related, sort of match results question. This is more have you been paying attention to FYB's instruction question?
An FYB instruction
and this is a question we've actually asked in the past, but I want to do it again to make sure people are paying attention. Is what are the 5 fundamentals of the forehand? Ooh. Per our definition. If you're taking a free, you got to name them. Right. Yep, and they have to be in order.
Okay, you got to name them in order. 5 fundamentals of the forehand. Name them.
Yeah, EPAPs, you're not allowed to. You're not allowed. You have a moral victory.
Ooh, I wonder if people are surfing fuzzyyellowballs.com or if they're just
gotta
typing
pull up.
as
Gotta
fast
pull
as
up.
they can.
Yeah, that's true. There is a lot you have to type out. If you guys abbreviate and it is legible, that'll count. There's one. There's one.
The question is, name the 5 fundamentals of the tennis forehand as we define them. Our instruction here. What are the 5 fundamentals of the forehand?
Mercury Rob, not quite there. Not quite there.
On the free section of our website. I believe it's up under
I think
tennis lessons.
I think tennis MC got it. The first one was pivot and shoulder turn.
All right, tennis MC is getting
Second was take racket back, swing to contact, follow through, swing path. Yep. Tennis MC got it. Congratulations. Congrats, man.
Tennis MC.
Good work.
Has he won something before?
No,
maybe not.
If he has, stop hogging all that stuff.
Nope, he says finally, so I believe that would be his first one.
We'll do a bonus one because this is actually playing off something I wrote about a little while ago. Okay, so for those of you who have been, this is per what I have said, by the way, so you got to essentially agree with my analysis. I'm not sure if you guys, so this is, if you guys have been following our material, you'll know what my thoughts are on this particular question. But for those of you listening to John McEnroe's commentary on ESPN2, it doesn't really matter if you're listening to his commentary or not. John McEnroe has all 5 of the fundamentals we just talked about, except for one. And which one is it?
This is
so first person in the chat.
This is a tough one. Have we talked about that?
I've talked about it before.
Okay. I know what it is.
You do.
I know. I know exactly what it is.
Yeah, I mean, well, I'll give it to I'll give it to Farno. He said continuous motion. He doesn't. Charles said he doesn't have a loop, but it's continuous motion.
All right.
It's not a C. So it's a discontinuous swing path because the racket comes back, stops, and then starts forward again.
Do we have some video you could pull up on YouTube of exactly
I
what we're
do
talking
in a
about?
second. Let me just send out this message. Give me 1 second to pull that up, Adam, and then we'll go from there. Good work.
We're going to pull up some video here of McEnroe for you and show you exactly why he is not.
I mean, really?
Really? YouTube's down? What does that even mean?
There we go.
Okay.
All right.
We go. Go over to McEnroe. The flashing that's going on there is because
this first one is confusing or not confusing, but it's a return, so we're not going to count that one.
Yeah.
But then we're just going to watch this clip in a second, and he'll be there. Here's a forehand, so pivots, turns the shoulders, cool.
The racket comes back,
but then it stops, and then it comes forward.
And comes forward.
Follow through, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Everything else is
contrast that with maybe an Andy Roddick forehand or something like that.
Okay.
Let's take a look at that. I think we have a video up there.
We'll go to that one. This
Maybe,
is ours.
yeah,
This is ours.
Slow motion.
It's not the red one footage, but it'll do.
So watch how Andy's racket, instead of coming
Straight back and
down
stopping,
and then stopping, his racket just comes up in a loop and then drops down and then swings forward.
Yeah, it's like he's tracing a C out with the tennis racket, and that's what you guys want to have in your motions as well, because that develops rhythm and timing.
A little bit of technical knowledge there for you. So the poll results, right, that we were going back, let's do that and then wrap this up here, because we're going about 45 minutes now. The previous poll was, who is the most dominant player on what surface? And your options were, was it Pete Sampras on grass, Roger Federer on grass, Bjorn Borg on clay, or was it Rafa Nadal on clay? And overwhelmingly, people think Rafa Nadal on clay is the most dominant player on that surface ever. Followed by Roger Federer on grass, and then followed by Pete Sampras on grass.
Yeah, before we hit on that, somebody asked what grip is Mac using. He's basically around a Continental, which is not a grip you can use nowadays, or at least in the modern game. Yeah, those statistics I would tend to agree with. I think Rafa is probably on clay is probably going to end up.
What was his win streak on clay?
It was
like
a billion
matches or something. Does anyone know in chat what Rafa's win streak was on clay?
84, Eric Norman says.
84?
84 straight matches. Yeah, I mean it was a ton of matches. You know, the other thing about Rafa versus Borg has more French Opens, but Rafa is not 24 yet, and I don't think he's going to retire at 25. So I think he's got a chance to match that record, and certainly stack up those Master Series shields. So I think Rafa. The answer to that question might change after this French Open. I mean, we'll see if a guy like Soderling can sort of expose how to beat Rafa on that surface. But that's a big if right now. But I tend to agree with those results. I think with the grass question between Sampras and Fed.
Charles was saying Guillermo Vilas had 50 in a row, and Borg had an 82 clay court streak.
Yeah, I mean
Borg, even though one person voted for Borg, he did have 6 French Opens, a U.S. Open final, and an 81.
It's not like we're talking about like Rafa's great and everybody else is a slouch.
No, sure. I think the question is who's the greatest, obviously.
Yeah, I mean I think Rafa's again. I think it might be we might be jumping the gun a little bit on this answer since Rafa's career isn't over yet.
Sure.
But I think the question with Federer versus Sampras on a grass court, the problem with that is the grass courts aren't the same anymore. The grass courts when Sampras was playing aren't the same as the grass courts Federer won all his majors on. They slowed him down. So you match Sampras up against Fed on the 90s grass, then you say Sampras probably wins more of those. But now you match up Federer versus Sampras on the 2000s grass, and you might say, well, Federer is going to win more of those. So that's sort of a tough question to answer simply because the surface is a little bit different, whereas clay court is still clay court.
Sure.
It's not like they've done anything to that.
All right, there's one final poll question for you here. The previous poll question that I just asked was, do you feel like Hawkeye will eventually replace human line judges? And 60-40, you guys thought that Hawkeye will eventually replace human line judges, but this question is, are you going to be sad if the human judging element of tennis, which is such an integral part, certainly I think, of the game today,
yeah, I
goes?
mean, I'm probably going to bias the results by saying this, but I actually don't think they're going to replace because there's so much tradition surrounding that stuff, and you could.
Well, a lot of people feel the same way. Apparently, we got like 73% of people think that it would be bad.
Yeah, I mean Federer, he can't stand Hawkeye, and he doesn't want it in there at all. I think it has its place. I think the way it's configured now is pretty solid, and it's not like humans are super inaccurate
Right.
When they're calling these lines. So I don't know. You know,
there's always that question. I mean, you know, the same thing happens in pro American football.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, the way that they measure a first down is not by that yellow line. They have a chain that they just move, and sort of the ball placement by the referee is pretty arbitrary.
Yeah, the spotting of the ball is totally arbitrary when they're at the bottom of the pile.
And I think that for people who aren't really familiar with like American football review rules, it sort of seems to some people like the refs just go under the hood kind of when they feel like it, and there's no real set for like how you actually judge not someone's got a first down. And I think that I'm probably barking up a tree here.
Well, no, well, that's a little bit different. It's like the NBA. For those of you going to watch the NBA finals, each referee team calls the game a little bit different.
Right.
So, and the coaches know that. So, if they have a team that calls it real close, they might play one way, and if they have a team that, or, you know, a ref team that lets them play, so to speak, which in other words means a lot of contact, then they, you know, they might have a slightly different approach.
I think ultimately most sports are human endeavors.
Yeah, exactly.
Human as well.
You know, yeah. I mean, then you say, well, why don't we just have robots play the matches in that case?
Robots versus wrestlers would be awesome if you watch How I Met Your Mother on TV.
Fed is kind of like a robot.
I'd be into robots versus Federer. How about that?
Robots versus Federer.
Anyway.
Well, on that,
let's wrap that up.
Extremely intelligent note, I think we're going to wrap this thing up. If you have any final parting shots in the chat, please let us know. But otherwise, we will of course see you tomorrow at 5 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, and then of course this Sunday for the men's final, we will be broadcasting during the match. We'll probably start about, I'd say, 15 to 30 minutes before the match. So you know, we have Ian Westerman of EssentialTennis.com back. So he and I will talk about whatever it is we want to talk about.
Super.
Probably the match, but we could go on a tangent.
This thing went almost an hour. All right. Signing off for today. We will see you guys tomorrow, 5 p.m.
Yep. Women's. Just before you sign off, it's the women's tomorrow. So women's semifinal, of course. Yep. So I'll be putting together a preview video for that. But there should be some good tennis in there because I think there's. You know, I think a lot of these women are, you know, and having never won a major, there's going to be some interesting stuff going on. I think you're going to see them fighting real hard, so I'm looking forward to that. But with that in mind, any parting shots, Adam?
Nope.
All right.
I think we're good. See you guys.
See you later.